the people who lead the company are really dairy centric, meaning they're not engineers and software people necessarily, including myself. I started off as managing dairies and then went and taught myself how to program. So, we started off with that basis. If I leave you with nothing after this discussion, it's really trying to get you to understand we need you to bet on us. We are here the long haul. We are committed to building what we believe the industry deserves, and we're working really hard to do that. And we want you to bet on us. So, with that, what is it? So, what is Milk building? This one platform. It's an ERP. So I've got the description of what an ERP is. In business, especially in manufacturing, which is dairy, everything is tied. We talk about this all the time. The dairy industry is full of variables. There's all kinds of things that happen and make it really difficult for us to decipher what caused what. And that's just because so many points, weather, feed, when, how, timing, there's all kinds of things, people, facility. There's so many things that impact whether we're successful or not. Set aside markets themselves, what the price of milk is, what is the manufacturing or the creameries want from us. All those things are causing us to have a hard time understanding is where do we go next. Latest rumor I heard a couple of days ago was in Idaho, where creameries are actually saying, we don't want components anymore, we want flow. Well, here we are as an industry, been breeding for it, feeding for components, and now they want to go the opposite direction, which just, it's always something that way, and we just need to have a lot more control. So an ERP is the only way to do that. Animals and feed and people who worked with those animals, who fed cows, the farming side, all these things are very integrated and very connected and cause outcomes that we don't necessarily want, but we need to be able to understand where those things come from. Okay. So what we are building literally is, now let's see if I can get this to work. Is the ERP. So this logo in the middle is to represent one. And so if you think about your business, and I know we have a lot of consultants and other companies, potentially even those that are competitors, maybe, looking at the environment saying, okay, we have logistics, meaning things are coming in and out of my dairy. I've got fuel, I've got seed, I've got cattle going out, milk going out, calves going out, all those things coming in and out. We will digitize all that. If you think about processes, herd management, feed management, managing farm, all of those are processes that you're trying to drive for your facility. Human resources, dealing with time and attendance, the effectiveness and the efficiency of our employees. One person that gets paid 8 hours a day or 10 or 12 or whatever the number is, how much in active, effective jobs did they get done that day, right? And are they efficient to maintenance and equipment and sensors? So it's really connecting all these things rather than having non-data scientists use Excel spreadsheets to tell you an answer that's probably wrong, right? So that's the thing we're trying to avoid. Okay, so the modules today, facility. So anything in your barn. We have now production. So if you want pin-based production, if you want shift or day, we have that. We have tank monitoring and wash monitoring. So you'll tell you pH and temperatures and chill and, did it get hot enough for wash? Did you get soap and acids in? To anything, fluids, teat dip, fuel, doesn't matter. Anything within your barn that you want to monitor, including motors and pumps, fluid use, all those things, that's all part of facility. People, we have a training platform that does all the farm, best practice, sexual harassment, all those types of things that you need as a business owner. and it's built so that you don't have to understand a language. You don't need to know how to read, which is really important in our business. Animal, which is herd management, which is released and doing quite well. We have a new product releasing here in the next couple of weeks, which is called Scale. So again, back to the logistics, moving products in and out of the dairy. That will take care of that, including for harvest. So when you harvest your forages, we track that, brings it into inventory. Then feed management, which is a big accounting system. And I would say one of the early developments for us and have been very successful. We're reaching just about 1.5 million animals already, and I would say that we are by far feeding more animals than any of the other feed management systems already, and we did that in 3 or 4 years. So that's a pretty big deal. I've been involved in Easy Feed and Feed Watch. We got nowhere near there. So we've been very excited about that success, and I think a lot of other products are doing very, very well. What does it look like when you really look at your facility, right? The ecosystem is about laying out all of those different processes. So dealing with animals, dealing with the facility or the manufacturing plant, if you would, and then people, those individuals that are affecting all of those outcomes, and feed management, Scale. And so these are the places that we're going. So I just want to kind of quickly walk through that so you understand who we are, and we will open it up to questions.
All right. Thank you, Manuel. All right. This is the chance for you guys to ask the questions. Let us hear what you're thinking. So we will open it up to you guys here on the call. Any questions out there? Again, raise your hand or write it in the comment box. Okay. Well, I'll start with a question here. How did Milc Group develop? Oh, we got a question. I will stop and we'll go here to James. And his question is, where do you see yourself going? So where do you see Milc Group going?
So we're working really hard and working really fast to get to a point. Our goal is to really give the power to a dairy producer to know if today they're in the black or in the red. So my partner comes from the turkey industry. Their family were big turkey farmers then, and now a dairy producer. And we both agree that dairy producers struggle to understand where they're at. And they're dependent on a lot of risk management companies to try to help them understand where they're at. So our goal is that literally within the next few years, sooner, hopefully rather than later, is that they'll be able to pick up their cell phone and see today if they're in the black, are they in the red, and what is the margin, so that they have the power to decide it's time to contract milk or is it contract feed, those types of things, and really give them the power so that they're not dependent on so much of your gut feeling or some impression that someone else comes in. This is going to be really important for consultants to understand the platform, because it is no longer our system, our ecosystem, because it's going to be very tied together and connected, and those things are going to help a lot. So it's all about putting power back in the dairy producers' hands, including their own data, because that has a value that only you should receive. And I think the success of what we've seen in the last 6 years tells you kind of where we're going.
Perfect. James and Susie actually have a question. It's kind of a joint question, so I'll ask them together. Does our software play nice with other software? So like Dairy Comp, PC Dart, Dairy Plan?
I will say it this way. Back to who owns the data. You as the dairy producer, and I'm speaking to the dairy producers here, is that you own the data. Where you want it to go or what you want to come into our system, it's up to you, not us. We will never stop data going where you want it to go, and we will never be a barrier for integrations. We've worked pretty hard in integrations. We do a lot of automation, for example, in our feed, and we're working with third parties from mixer companies to other PLC companies, working with them to solve problems, including a self-loader that we did for a dairy producer where it's controlling the self-loader a little bit. So a lot of automation there. From herd management, we have worked with all the companies trying to get those integrations. We got most of them now. I think we're pretty close to most of the integrations. And it's never been about, you know, us restricting that. It's about the integrated company understanding that we don't own any of it, and the dairy producer decides who we connect to. So yes, we love to play nice. We will never be a barrier. Sometimes the other companies don't feel the same. So pressure from dairy producers is always the best way.
All right, and then Mark is asking about demos. What do we have available for producers and professionals on the demo side with our software?
Yeah, if you have interest in seeing some of the products, make sure that Derek knows. I think Caitlin is also on the line, and Jason and others. We can set up remote and or on-site if need be, depending on where you are in the world. But we can walk through any type of demo that you need. Just let us know.
And then another question is, our pricing model, or are we subscription based? How does that work?
Yes. We are a subscription-based company, so they call it SaaS. We want all-inclusive so that we're not billing you for things, features, functions, things like that. We do price it per piece or per module or some type of component, kind of depends. We try to have a bit of a menu. The purpose is the whole ecosystem, and we do discount. If you have 2 modules, for example, it's 5% off the service. If you have everything we're doing, it's 10% off all of the service amount. So we're trying to do those things. Technology, if you don't know, is very, very expensive. That's why companies like Valley Ag haven't had much in the way of competitors, because it's very, very expensive to build. We have 30 software developers, and you can only imagine that they're not cheap because they're hard to find. People like Jason and others with all that skill set, you know, so nothing here is cheap. And we're not trying to be the least expensive. What we're really trying to be is the best, and to move as quickly as possible for your benefit. So we are a SaaS model. It depends on the module. Some things are based on a per animal. Some things are priced a little bit different. It just kind of depends. So ask our sales team, and they can be, you know, they can clear it for you.
We'll keep moving along. We have another question from John. He's asking, how developed is milk and blood pregnancy results integration with animal?
It depends, because that comes from all sorts of different labs. We'll work with any lab, by the way. So John, if you're working with someone who does that, in Ramon, I think, who is the VP, each product, just to be clear, has an expert in charge of that product. So Ramon is the VP of animal. Michelle he's a PhD nutritionist, so he's in charge of feed. And what we really try to focus on is, what data does the dairy producer need? Well, even on behalf of the dairy, we go out and try to connect to labs. So we've been working with Zoetis to have the genomic stuff come in. Obviously, we work with DRPCs or the processors for DHI testing, so that stuff comes in. SCR, activity, cow manager, GIA, you know, AFI, all of those different systems that have data come in. So John, if you've got something specific, just let us know.
Question there, John. Caleb with a question. Will our software integrate with existing PLCs? For example, parlor monitoring with soaps and dip. So
we've worked with a couple of different companies who put up their own proprietary PLCs, and yes, we can quite often get that data. We just need to work with those companies because they know the structure of the PLC that they've built. But we can what they call surface or get it visually into our application, which is iOS, Android, and browsers. So it is native iOS, native Android, and then native cloud. So it's just a matter of working with those companies to bring it into the cloud. A lot of what we do, we're building a lot, but we don't believe that we're the smartest to do everything. So we'll work with companies absolutely to bring their systems together, including those.
All right, thank you for your question there, Caleb. If anyone has a question, again, put in the comment box, or you can even unmute yourself at this time and just ask the question of Manuel, Derek, or Jason, who are on this call. I have a question here. How did Milc Group develop animals so that it is fast and easy to use?
Well, luckily we had a really solid benchmark, in our opinion. One of the products that probably most of you know or use is really fast. So that was something that Ramon focused heavily on, is being very fast. So I would say that Animal will compete really well with the speed of other products. I think we do, and amazingly, through the internet. We have got a great group of team, not only our developers, but the professionals that work within the organization, some of which are here on the phone, experts subject experts in the dairy industry. And we know the culture, right? We know that we don't have time, things got to move quick, how important it is that the data is accurate because we're dealing with animals and feeding them and treating them, and things like off-sync programs, how critical they are to be right. So we spend a ton of time making sure that it's fast. Look, we're not perfect. We are human. We do make mistakes, but we stand behind our products and our company, and we work really hard to make sure that those don't exist. And so, it's all about moving quickly, I think.
All right, we have another question here, and I'm going to point this one to Jason. So the question is there a way to create customizable reports in the feeding platform? For example, dry matter offered by pen by day, or setting custom thresholds on the mixing accuracy reports?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one we'll get quite often. So I don't think Michelle's on the call with us, but I think if Michelle and I could go back 2 years in time, or 4 years now, I guess, since Feed's been developed, we would have never hard-coded any reports. We would have just had a report builder. So we do have filtering in the platform as of now, so you can filter by dates, certain pins, recipes, other metrics there. But we soon realized that each individual farm wants a report to look a little different than the next. So in the year 2024, Milc Group is going to be working on an analytics module, which will take care of all the custom reporting, where you can build your reports in each of the modules. You can save those reports so that the next time you come to look for them, you don't have to build them again. You can just click on it and see the data there for you. And then futuristically thinking, as analytics grows, as we grow as well with more modules, you'll be able to pull data from animal and bring it into your analytics module, and also feed data, so that you can look at feed efficiencies, income over feed costs, stuff like that. So currently we do have some filtering in reports, but as far as custom building reports, that's coming here, and we're hoping 2024.
Yeah, that's an important part. What we didn't want to do is what a lot of products do, is stuff a bunch of stuff inside of herd management or feed management, especially when you're talking about the cloud. So you're seeing more and more dairy producers buy more and more facilities, right? So you got to take the step back away from the product to be able to report across all companies and all modules. So if I'm looking at people and farm and feed and facility and animal and all these things, you need to be a step back so you can grab the data to look at it from a analytical point of view. That's why it's called analytics. So yeah, we're working on that, actually having the whole team coming together here in the next month. to drive that pretty hard. So we're putting all focus on that at the moment.
Thank you for your question, Casey. We have a question here from Caleb for Manuel. How will scale work in terms of user friendliness?
Yeah, we worked really hard at making it simple. All of our products are built that way because support, Jason will know because I say this all the time and he says the same thing, is we want our support people to be bored out of their mind. And the reason is, if you're calling us, you're frustrated, even if it's just to ask a simple question. You know, I make the analogy, we want to be like a microwave. You never think about how it works or if it's going to work. You just go, you know, heat up your food, right? So it's really trying to drive towards ease, especially when you're talking about scale, because you have truck drivers who may have never been there before. So from the harvest side or ins and outs of commodities, we've worked really hard. We're pretty excited about it. We'll have it at the I think at least a preview of it at the farm show in Tulare. But if you want a demo of that, we'd love to you know, show that to you as well. So we're pretty excited about it.
Thank you, Caleb. Ted with a question. Do you think feed will be able to integrate pictures for different ingredients in the future?
Yeah, we already have a bit of that. Right now it's in the, so let me explain a little bit. We built animals separate from the one platform for speed, and we didn't want to cause any conflict to feed and facility and people and that we've got going there. We are currently today in the merge. And we think we're probably middle of March, animal will be with the one platform. And that whole process creates quite a bit, right? So yeah, yes, I think. Hopefully that made sense.
Thank you, Ted. Again, is there anybody else with questions, or you can unmute yourself at this time. We have a hand raised. So Kyle, go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Just a question or suggestions on feed. I don't know if there's, you know, I know you guys are always trying to improve things. Will we have the ability to archive or make feed ingredients inactive in the future, so we can still keep track of, you know, how much we use, especially changing between crops of haylage or crops, years of corn side? It'd be nice to keep that one in there, but you're not using it anymore, so we could keep track of the tonnage. Then the other question I had is about the actual feeding, about being able to skip ahead or back in a load to skip over ingredients, so you're not set in stone on the order in case you have an equipment breakdown, something like that, so you can skip around in a batch.
Yeah, I'll let Jason ask the real question. Let me make a real kind of a overall statement. We delete nothing. We don't have to archive anything. It's really important that all data exists, because things in time, you may want to go back and look at what you were doing years ago versus now. So nothing is ever deleted. In the software world, they call that a soft delete. So it's removed, but it's not removed from the system. So you can still report on it. That's true of all our products, to be really clear, because the urgency or the importance to be able to get back to that data is really big. And I'll let Jason ask or answer the real questions.
Yeah, both of those requests, I believe we have on our backlog, is what we call it, of requests. So it's there, and Michelle is the one that pulls and pushes the strings, so to speak, on the development of the feed software. So as the volume of requests like that, the higher it gets pushed up. So the archiving one, not archiving so much, but somewhere you can get it off of your ingredient list, but then have an area where you can go see all those ingredients has been asked quite a few times recently. So I'm sure that's high on his priority list, but I'll speak to him about that and make sure he's aware.
For your question. Does anybody else have anything before I move on to the next one? All right, our next question. Is Milc Group working on any product that will assist in finding and IDing cows more accurately in the barn?
Yeah, we're working on some pretty large projects that I think, as a group, we sit down and say, what's the real impact on a dairy and how could we help solve this for them? And if you look at the ID systems out there, none of them are great, especially if you just want to have a good ID system, regardless of what brand you're using from a milk meter or a barn or whatever. So we've last year we started doing some proof of concept, some prototyping on AI. We're getting ready to go on farm at my partner's dairy to start. We are using cameras to ID animals in the barn, but not just the ID, but the mass. So if I can't read the animal, and I know it's a stall because we're reading the stall and the animal. If I can't read the ID, the system then says, okay, I have a body mass here. I know there's an animal here, and then flag the people in the barn. Our apps don't cost anything. So the whole team could have the app. The dairy producer or administrator of the system will determine who can do what they have access to, but it will pop and say that this animal or this body doesn't have an ID, for example, in stall 7, or sort gates could sort them out. So we make sure we get that covered. We're also looking at 2 other systems, a new way to handle EIDs to be better, or some of the other technologies that are available, like in Amazon warehouses that we're looking at applying, and we're pretty excited about. What our goal is to, in very short period of time, is to say we have a system that's 100% ID. Because if we don't know the number, at least we know that we need to hold her or ID her body for someone to look at it. We are also working on the project of bringing milk production. About 5% of the dairy market today have milk meters. And we hope that not too distant future we'll have the ability to put daily milk into a dairy for less than 2,000 a stall. Today, I think it's 5,000 or 6,000 or whatever it is, plus expensive ID systems. And we think it's going to be pretty awesome because the milk collection only is seen by the dairy producer. Nobody else gets that information, including all of the data behind, the animals and stuff. Again, we said dairy producer owns it all. So keeping that private to you, whether it be milk and animal information or anything else that we work with you on. So this will be a pretty big deal. We have pulsation sensors, which manage the stall. And if you look at what that information tells us, hang time, kick time, turns, all those types of things, right? And then you have production and a solid ID system. It'll be a big win for the dairy industry.
Daniel, anybody else have questions? If you do, unmute yourself at this time. Okay, we'll keep going. Is cloud-based software stable enough to support herd management database, and can it be used offline and then synced later?
Yeah, all of our systems are built to be autonomous, meaning it's not required to be connected. Now, there are cases where you want to make sure it is. For example, if you have feed automation, it's really important that all of the pieces are talking to each other. And the way you do that is not set up an expensive on-farm Wi-Fi system. That gets very expensive. So the cloud becomes really, really supportive of that. So we use both Wi-Fi and data plans. And in functions like that, you just make sure they're both available. And we always look for Wi-Fi. If we don't see it, we'll go to data plans. So it moves how it communicates depending on what's available. But many farms, I think our smallest farm is like 68 cows. We have 60,000, 70,000 as well. But the smaller farms around the world potentially don't have offices or computers, right? So they're using their devices to manage their dairy out in the middle of nowhere. And then when they go home, they can sync. So it's not necessarily needing to be connected. The other is that everything is stored in Amazon Web Services, so it's encrypted like the banks, and the uptime is as dependable as that as well, because we have redundancy systems around the world. We're, I think, in 9 or 10 countries now around the world, so our systems can't ever go down, and so it's pretty reliable.
Thank you, Manuel. We have a question here from Sonia. It's for the feed program. Is there a push somehow to get truckloads synced into the system without us entering the loads ourselves? We have been having problems with accurate loads on site or inventory.
Yeah, and for all dairy producers, I think they instinctively know that managing feed is tough, because God takes some, birds take some, the wind takes some, and then trying to balance the receipts to consumption, also go through all kinds of systems that drop it all over the floor. Go to any dairy and, they've got a road base of commodities. That is disappearance, right? So you have that anyway, but the problem tends to be managing inputs into inventory. That's where scale was really important, right? Is that we can automate that, but we're going a step further. We've reached out to some of the different companies out there, including my partners who has a feed company and additive companies, where we're going to digitize the transition from an order to a delivery into inventory. And so you'll be able to really do it pretty humanless. I think scale is already built to not be human required. Otherwise, you don't have somebody there writing anything down. You download the app. It's pretty simple. Pick the load, the field and the commodity. You have a lightweight already, so you just do heavyweights to try to clean up that process. So yes, we're working really hard on that. Michelle has focused a lot of time. That's something that you can see at the farm show in Tulare if you want to come and look at that. But we will be ready for the first harvest in the spring.
Thank you for your question there, Sonia. Caleb, with the question, how will scale talk to inventory and feed?
How does scale talk to inventory and feed? Well, it's through the same system. If you've seen our feed, use our feed, we talk through many means. The device, we built our own scale because we did not want to have the restrictions or the inaccuracies of a Digistar scale or any of the other scales. We built our own, and so the devices, you feed off of a tablet or a cell phone that talks Bluetooth to the device, which is a scale, and so that connection, keeping it simple, the truck drivers will actually communicate with the truck scales the same way. So everything is through the cloud. So as they process data, it sends up and matches it into inventory. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Caleb, for your question. We have a question here about animal. How will animal manage multi-site facilities?
If you have feed, the same way. So you'll, whether you're a consultant or you have multiple dairies, it's the same thing. On the right, there's a drop down. You bounce from one facility to the other. Again, from a reporting standpoint, and in the app, same thing. You can change the facility really simply in the app. But from a reporting standpoint, that's where analytics looks across companies, across modules, if I own all them or if I am a consultant and have been invited by the dairy producer. Again, we don't charge at all for the professionals who work with dairies because they're part of their management team. And so they're able to help the dairy without the fee to Milc Group. So yeah, it's pretty slick to move from one to another. Remember, it's a cloud as well. So if we move commodities eventually and animals from dairy to dairy, it's just It's just selling them or pushing them off to another animal client. It becomes very simple. It's not a do a backup, give it backup to somebody. They got to import it, worry about the databases being different. All of that has gone away.
Cody with a question. In dairy comp, we can automatically print reports. Can we do that with animal for the employees that are not going to use an app on their phone?
So there is printing, but efficiencies are some of the things that we really focused on. And devices make the role better. If you look at the number, yes, you can print. Can you schedule it? No, because it's in the cloud. We're not necessarily working through a computer, right? Because you can pull it up in any device. So we don't know where the printer is. What happens is it creates a PDF that you then print from whatever computer you're pulling this up. We do have a scheduler, so tasks can happen on a scheduled basis. And we can actually send tasks to the app, to the individual to go do this, go temp these cows, beef these cows, move these cows. So you can actually task manage. But I would say that the biggest problem that we have in the industry is that we don't really collect stuff that happens to animals that cost us a ton of money. And I'll give you an example. In most dairies, I'll take dairy comp, I'll pick on it because that's probably the mass, most of you who have that, is that 1 to 3 people have access to that computer. And if I'm an employee, maybe I'm pushing cows and I see an abortion or I see a lame cow or I see a sick cow, the likelihood that I'm going to report it and go find somebody or call somebody to tell them, unlikely. But if I have the app, remember, it's security driven. So you determine as the dairy producer what I can or cannot do. But we also have an assignments system in there where you just can tell people, hey, herdsman, cow number 1, 2, 3, 4 is lame, or I just saw this animal aborted, or this animal is supposed to be pregnant and she's in heat. The sooner you can deal with that animal, the less money you lose, right? If you saw an abortion, you can get her cycled back, get her on off sync if you're on that, and that way it moves forward. So it's really about efficiency because, again, we're trying to manage margins, and waiting for things to just pop up later is a huge cost to dairy producers.
Thank you, Cody, for your question. Derek will be reaching out to you about your 90-day free trial of Animal. And just a reminder to everyone here on this call that we are offering that to anyone who joined this webinar. So if you're interested, just respond back to those email invites that you've gotten saying that you want to give Animal a 90-day free trial. So any other questions? All right, we have one more last question and then we'll wrap things up. This is for Manuel. What new hardware do you see coming to the market that you're most excited about that's outside of Milc Group?
Probably the expansion of wearables. I think, a lot of what we're doing, carrying around phones and things like that, I think is going to kind of pivot at some point, whether it be the glasses that we wear. I think some stuff have come out in the past that we look at and say, very cool idea, way too expensive, or it's not practical. I think, there's companies out there looking to make it practical, a part of our everyday. There's been a lot of talk about AI. Not only is it not what most say it is, but it's also, if it is, it's a little scary. So some of those things can help us, but they can also hurt us in that give us wrong answers. So AI, or at least what I would call very smart algorithms, will be something that we will be applying in a careful way. But I think wearables, whether it be on humans and animals and things like that, I think have a lot of upside for us in the future.
Yeah. All right. If we don't have any more questions, we're going to wrap this webinar up for today. Keep an eye out for other opportunities to join the discussion. Our goal is to host these webinars quarterly, giving you a chance to collaborate on what matters the most to you.